So earlier this week, the sad announcement came out that Phil Donohue had passed away. And to be honest, 5 years ago, he was not on my radar at all. I just sort of tangentially knew that he was a talk show host at some point. But I really didn't know much more than that. And 3.5 years ago, basically a couple weeks before Mark, my now fiance, and I met, I heard his wife, Marlo Thomas, on a podcast with Ali Wentworth, and they were talking about a book that just came out that the two of them had worked on together called What Makes a Marriage Last. And I have it right here because I am obsessed with this book. I love it so much. They did interviews with 40 different couples who kind of shared with them the secrets to a happy life and to their marriage and relationship and kind of what made it work or what is making it work even today over many, many years. And so I was listening to that podcast in a season when I was single after my divorce. So I hadn't been single in 17 years. And I was just very interested in this idea of like, what does make it last? Like, what are the ingredients that two people have to kind of go the distance and want to stay together and like and in love for many, many decades? So I listened to this podcast very intently and sent it to Mark when I don't even know if we had met yet. Maybe we had met once in Palm Springs, and then I sent it to him and I was like, this is so magical. This story, like Phil and Marlo's story specifically, but then the book and the stories of all the couples they interviewed. And so their story is very sweet. They met when she came on his show, maybe in the early 80s, like early 1980s. And she was like late 30s, early 40s. And he was a little bit older than that. He had been married, had 5 children. His 4 teenage boys lived with him in Chicago. His daughter lived with the mom. And Marlo at the time lived in LA. He was in Chicago. But they just had this kind of instant connection and really fell for each other. And so he asked to like take her to dinner the next night if she'd be willing to stay in town one more night. And she did, and they just kind of immediately fell for each other. And the way she tells the story is so sweet. They dated then long distance from LA to Chicago. And again, this is the 1980s. So flying back and forth, dating for maybe, she said about a year or so before they just said, maybe it was 6 months before they were like, we can't do this. This is too much. Like, this is crazy. He's like, I've got my kids in Chicago. You're in LA. And she was a movie star and on TV. And he was just kind of like, we can't do this. And so they decided to end it. And she said it was maybe a couple months. And then he was in Colorado with his boys skiing. And she said he called her in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. teary and just said like, I didn't know someone could be irreplaceable. And then she started crying, and then they got back together and they did distance for like a couple more years before they were then able to get married and both moved to New York because they either for their careers needed to be in New York or LA. She couldn't be in Chicago for her work. And then, she goes more in detail of their story and just they've been married for 44 years. And so I was so sad to hear about Phil Donahue's passing earlier this week because I was so in love with their love story. And I shared it with Mark. Again, I think we had met once. It was very early on in dating. And I was like, isn't this magical? And then they met and they were dating distance and then they cut it off. And he said, I didn't think someone could be irreplaceable. And Mark Howerton was kind of like, yeah, like whatever, that's fine, like cute, but I was insistent, like, no, this is amazing. And then in sort of a flirty way, he said to me, maybe I'm your Phil Donohue. So that's just been a long standing fun joke in our relationship. I'll post that screenshot maybe at the beginning or end of this video where he said that to me. So it's always been this sort of beautiful inside joke for us because while I would never subscribe to the belief that there's only one person for everyone, I don't believe that at all. I do think it is challenging to find someone that you really love and you like, want to spend time with, same values, physical connection, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, social. All those things are actually really hard to find in one person, which is why I'm so passionate about the work I do, helping people date after divorce, because obviously you've been through assuming a heartache and sadness and a loss of a marriage or relationship, and you possibly want to do it again at some point, and you'd like to get it right the next time. And so there's just a lot of work and thoughtfulness and mindfulness and things that need to happen to kind of be ready to be ready for that next person. And also just acknowledging that it actually is really hard to find somebody that you have this kind of magical connection with, that you want to do life with, and that's magical enough that you would possibly want to get remarried again and start over again in love. And I am someone who loves love. I love stories. I love magic. I love romance. It's why I'm getting married again in a few weeks from now in Santa Barbara wine country. So I share all that to also say that one of my favorite resources as a divorce coach who is helping people either try to stay in their marriages if they're thinking about divorce, or I'm also helping people date after divorce. This is an incredible book, What Makes Marriage Last, because they interview a lot of people that celebrities and different figures that are public that have been married multiple times. And so what I love is that some of them do kind of unlock their thoughts and perspectives and secrets on like, okay, I was married twice before, but now this third time, this is it. Like we just have something there, like a zazazoo, a spiritual connection. There's just something there that now we've been married 20 years and like I'll die married to this person. And so I just love like diving into those stories and hearing about what are those magic ingredients? What is the sticky glue that's making it work this time? I mean, some couples, it's, they've only been married once and they kind of talk about why they think they've been able to stand the test of time. So this is an absolute favorite book and resource and tool that I use with my clients. I sometimes gift it. I sent it to a client earlier this spring. I was like, you just need to read this book. It's so good as you're dating after divorce and thinking about, second half of life and your next partner and kind of, how to ideally get it right the next time. And what does that mean? I don't know. But hopefully with somebody that you can be with and partnered with for many, many decades to come. So reach out to me if you could use some coaching and support on dating after divorce, or just talking through your current marriage and kind of what's going on and what's good, what's bad, what's not. And I'm happy to engage with you on that. So reach out to me either via my website or you can direct message me. Thanks, y'all.